Welcome back, everybody, to Two Gents, Two Cents, brought to you by 15 Minutes of Finance. Today, we're going to cover a topic brought to us by one of our listeners. So thank you, Paul from Virginia, for your question.
Yes, Paul.
And he asked the following, and we thought it was a great question and a great episode topic. And he basically asked, hey, you've talked a lot in some of these episodes about managing a portfolio, where to put your assets, how do you effectively manage income in retirement? What do you do if you aren't ready to retire? So he gave sort of the context of me and my wife didn't grow up with a particularly large amount of financial literacy. We've worked hard. We've never been ultra wealthy. We're now getting to our early 60s. We're thinking about retirement. We'd like to retire in 5 years or so, but we don't feel like we know that we can retire. So how do we know if we can? And if we really aren't in a position where we can comfortably retire, what do we do now that we're already in our 60s and we don't have time value of money on our side? So that's Paul's question, and we're going to help answer that, and hopefully it helps a lot of people in a similar boat. And honestly, I would say it's a great question because there are probably overall more listeners that are going to be in Paul's shoes than the people listening to our advice about where should you allocate your funds and what type of things should you invest in, with $1 million. There's a lot more people who are in the position of I'm not sure if I can retire than the people who are trying to maximize their millions of dollars in retirement. So very applicable to a lot of our listeners. So James, we'll toss it over to you now for a little bit. Just kind of when you hear that question, what are your first thoughts and what are kind of the first things you would look at if a client comes to you with that question?
Yeah. Well, it's a question I hear quite often, actually, and it's a scenario that I see quite a bit, especially when I first started. A lot of in the field that I started in, it was nurses, it was doctors, hospital execs. When you hear those names, you automatically think, oh, they're probably doing well. But what I've seen is those people tend to do a really bad job of saving. Okay, so they also were in the same boat and probably, like, oh, when can I retire? Do I have enough money? How does Medicare work? When is my Social Security going to come out? All those questions really encapsulate the, I don't think I'm ready to retire. When can I retire? What does that look like, right? And that question is really, really simple, and it can get as complicated as you want. So the way I would break it down simply is, the way we did it when I first started was it was a pyramid. And this is not a pyramid scheme, so everybody don't get all caught off guard here. But it was a pyramid, and at the very top was a little. There was 3 lines drawn, so maybe about halfway up, sort of like the foundation of the pyramid, was a line drawn, and in there we would put indispensable expenses, right? Your expenses that are the most important thing to you, basically survival, right? And then there was another line drawn about, an inch above that, and we called that the fun money. And then an inch above that, which was a very, very, very small triangle, that was legacy, what you're going to leave on, right? So what we're really dealing with here is that first foundational level of that pyramid is the, can I even survive in retirement? And that question, again, we can make it as simple or complicated as we want, but I think for everybody listening that this question is important to, it's more of a simple answer right now. So again, everybody's situation is very different, but there are general principles that we can apply to your guys' situation. The first one I would tell you is you need to know how much money you're spending. Okay, you need to know your expenses. That's the most important thing. And I don't mean like, oh, we spend $10 on Netflix here, and then we have gas, and that's or our property taxes, and that's really all we pay. I mean, like, legitimately, this is the time where a budget is very important. You got to know down to the dollar how much you're spending. That way, you can know how much you need to make in retirement. Okay, so the first is your expenses, and the second is how much money you're going to need to make, your income in retirement. And so that question is really simple. How much money do you want to make in retirement, Brandon? How much do you want? Those
$25 million per month.
It would be excellent. But so, for example, we had a client. We were meeting with people probably a month ago, and they were like, yeah, well, we make about $180 a year, and we don't know if we can do that. Well, they had $3 million. So they definitely could do that, right? That's going to be a thrive situation and not a survive situation. And the best way to know if you're going to be able to survive or thrive in retirement is you've got to sit down and you've got to do the budget. That's the most important thing I would start with.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you end up working backwards from earlier on in your life, in your career, right? So when you start your career or you have your first job, you work backwards from how you do in retirement, right? You're getting a job that's going to support what you want to do. So it's usually experience driven, or it might just be the best job you can get. Maybe you don't know really what you want to do. You just know you need to save up some money for school or living expenses, and you're studying part-time, whatever it is. So you get a job and then you figure out how much do I make after taxes, and then you figure out how much you can spend. Retirement's backwards of that. You already have established a lifestyle. You're in your 60s, maybe even 70s. You know what your life looks like. So now you just need to calculate that and then work backwards to say, well, that's the way I'm living. So without adjusting, how much do I need to make that possible without my job income coming in?
Right. And so just to add on that real quick, the way we were taught was that there were three phases, right, in retirement. You got the go-go years, you got the slow-go years, and the no-go years. And it's super cheesy, but old people love that because they're like, oh, when I retire, I want to go. I want to see the world. I want to spend. I want to give away a bunch of money. So that like visual is it's very powerful. So when you guys are thinking, oh, can I retire? You need to think about, what does your picture look like? What do you even want to do in retirement? If your retirement is, hey, I want to live modestly and I want to volunteer every single day. I mean, you're going to need less money, obviously, than someone who I want to travel first class to Brazil every year. You know, it's like,
it's Japan, but yeah.
Well, you really have to say, what is it I want to do? And again, it just comes down to the planning aspect of stuff. But I would say, and this is hopefully encouraging, people typically save a lot less than they think they should, but are able to do a little bit more than they thought they could, is what I would say.
Yeah. So I would say at this point, let's kind of sort of summarize, create a clear picture. Most of your retirement lifestyle choices are variable. You can adjust a lot of things. So as you're budgeting and you're setting these goals, where really there's two first fundamental things you do, and then we'll talk about how do we project past that. You need to find out, as James said, with a very accurate, comprehensive budget, how much am I spending? How much does my life cost? And number two, how much will I get in retirement, not including any choices that I make investment-wise. So you need to go into a Social Security calculator and you need to calculate and estimate how much you think you're going to get in retirement. A lot of people don't realize there are 3 different Social Security tiers depending on when you retire, based on the analysis of the IRS that says, well, if you wait 5 to 6 extra years to retire, you're going to live a little bit less. So to give you the same payout on average, you're going to get more per month because you waited longer to get it. So you can retire, I want to say it's 62 and a half, 65, and 67 and a half. It's close to those.
Well, so the way Social Security works is you can start taking it at 62. Obviously, we don't recommend that if you can avoid it. But if every year you wait, it grows 8%. That's the general rule. And I think full retirement age is 67, right? That's what they've moved it to. So at full retirement age, that's when they tell you like you'll get the most bang for your buck. But if you wait till you're 70, I don't know if it's 70 or 72 now, but that's when your benefits cap out. So if you have a long history of living long, maybe you wait till you're 70. If you don't, maybe you do take it at 62. So Brandon had mentioned the Social Security Analyzer. Those are all things you guys can do yourself, or you guys can work with an advisor to do it. It's all up to how you guys want to handle that. But like he said, the first one is Social Security. That has absolutely nothing to do with your assets. That has everything to do with how many years you've worked, what was your income, and what you paid into it. So that's the first one.
And that's the one that's most dependent on age. So if you meet with an advisor, you go over how much assets you have, you try to plan for retirement. The number one variable decision you can make is, do I need to wait longer? So if the ultimate question at the end of the day is, no, my expenses are really close to what my income is going to be. If there was a single medical problem, we would be bankrupt. If that's the answer to your analysis with your advisor, then one of the most obvious solutions is going to be, well, if you can just wait a couple more years, your income will go up and now you're in the green without a cost of living adjustment. But like he said, with the non-disposable, what did you call those expenses? Indispensable. So with the indispensables, that's very few things. That's the cost of healthcare. In California, that's usually Medicaid for people of retirement age. You have your rent. You have your real estate taxes if you own a home. Even those things could adjust, right? If your answer is, no, we can't retire, well, maybe you need to live in a smaller place. So there are still a lot of variability. Maybe you don't have the newest iPhone with AT&T. Maybe you use the Ryan Reynolds brand. What is it called? Mint Mobile.
Mobile.
My boy Ryan, he's making it affordable for you guys out there. So you use Mint Mobile maybe, and you save $100 a month on your phone bill, right? So there is a lot of variability, okay, within costs. But you need to figure out, like James said, really two scenarios. There's indispensable. This is how cheap it is to live. I can't go under this. I'm not living under a bridge. This is the lowest I'm willing to go. And then there's, this is how I would like to retire. Those are the two scenarios you need. And then the income projections between Social Security and everything else we're going to talk about can answer those two fundamental questions as, can you retire at all? And can you retire the way you want to? Those are kind of the two questions you're answering.
Yeah. And to directly, just one point that Paul had made was, hey, we didn't grow up with financial literacy. A majority of people didn't. And a majority of people, because of that, have almost nothing really saved up. So I think there was a study, it was probably 5 years ago, but they said less than 30% of people in retirement, had more than $100,000 saved up. Okay. $100,000 saved up is, I mean, we've gone through what that looks like if you started at 18, 20, 25 in past episodes, but it's not a lot of money if you started earlier, right? But for 70% of retirees, they don't have that access. A lot of their money is tied up into their real estate, into their primary home. Okay, so with that, there comes a lot of issues you face. Oh, well, now I'm in retirement. Do I have to sell my primary home? Do I now have to live off of that on income to maintain the same lifestyle? All of these questions are very, very important, and that's why what I'm about to say, I think, is the most important thing you guys could hear today, is that if you are between 3 and 5 years of wanting to retire, you need to plan now. You need to either hire an advisor or start doing your own research and figuring out how to get your own financial plan set up. Because 3 to 5 years, things can happen. Okay, you can make goals still happen. Anything below that, you're really rolling the dice, you're playing a game, and the chances are you will have to cut some expenses. That's the honest truth.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, not everybody's in an ideal situation. So there, at the end of the day, there comes a point where you might be in a situation where your best answer is you got to spend less or you got to make more money. There is an element to that. If that was the whole point of this episode, that would be a really disappointing episode that teaches you almost nothing. But It is conceptually important to understand that there is an element to it that you can't magically not have a tax system. You can't magically make 50% more overnight, right? Where there is a reality of your financial situation that an advisor might not necessarily be able to fix for you despite making good investment choices. So understand that part of retiring, if you don't feel ready to retire and you didn't necessarily future plan very efficiently, there is a truth that the number one thing you can do is right now, like James said, 3 to 5 years from retirement, you might need to budget a little more. You might need to go to Mint Mobile now. You might need to go to Mr. Pho a little bit less because let me tell you, just for fun, I calculated the amount that my wife and I went to our favorite restaurant I will give you all a hint. It was more than 3 figures was the yearly amount that we spent at that restaurant. So
you're their best client. Your best customer.
We must. I would guess just in egg rolls, it's $500. Just in egg rolls, it's got to be $500. But so you might need to start cutting things now, and that's why it's important. You need to answer these questions. Can I retire? Can I retire comfortably? You need to answer those two questions for yourself now at 60 if you want to retire at 65. You need to answer that question at 57 if you want to retire at 62, because you need to know if you're going to retire at 62. Are you going to take Social Security, or do you need to work a little bit more to your 65 and then your Social Security benefits with your other investments that get you to where you want to go?
Yeah, and on top of a couple things we had said, so we had mentioned Social Security being the only. I mean, that's technically guaranteed would be a dangerous term, but right now it's guaranteed that we're going to be paying out Social Security. The government is. So other things that might be guaranteed are your pensions. Okay, very few people actually have pensions anymore, but some people do. Okay, so that's another form of quote unquote guaranteed income. And then everything on top of that is your investments. Say that's not everybody's situation. Those people tend to have a lot more flexibility than, say, the person who own their own business and all of their net worth is in their business. That situation probably requires a little bit more planning. And if that is you, I mean, I would speak with another financial advisor, but mainly do it with us. There's lots of planning we can do around Medicaid or Medicare, around Social Security, around your investments, etc. There are different strategies that can probably be done for you if you're not the average person. Okay. If you are the average person, I wish there was something magical I could tell you. I really do, but time is the most important thing for you. I know it's morbid, but that's what I would say.
And within those other investments, the reason that Social Security is the first question we'll ask a retired client. So like James just talked about, previous clients we've met, hey, can I retire? Here's what we have. First thing we ask, well, how much are you getting in Social Security? Have you done that calculation? Because that's going to be kind of a fixed portion that we don't influence at all, right? Do you have a pension? Do you have Social Security? Then the investments those can be managed in different ways based on what you need after you've filled in the other dots into this equation, right? So when you're asking this question to yourself, this is something very important. Remember that as we've done these more sort of, I would argue, younger investor-focused episodes where we've talked about the time value of money, the level to which investing early massively, exponentially increases wealth. Just because you're approaching retirement doesn't mean that time value of money no longer factors in. If you have $150,000, let's say, in retirement, right? And you're not going to leave a lot behind. You have a $1.5 million house, and you're going to leave that to your kids. That's the inheritance. So the rest just needs to support you till you die.
Survive.
Yeah, right, you need to survive. You have an inheritance. It's in your home. You don't want to sell your home. It's a family home. So everything else needs to help you survive. You already have your inheritance kind of set aside. So if you have that $150,000 and you can make Social Security plus a little bit of some random account work and you can pay your bills, well, if you can wait 6 or 7, 8 years, remember that at 10.26% historical S&P 500, your money with compound interest doubles between every 7 and 8 years historically. So now if we have a conversation at 62 and with some good budgeting, clamping down a little bit on the spending, you can get to 69, 70 without touching that money on just your Social Security. Well, now we're answering questions of here's what we can do with $300,000 rather than here's what we can do with $150,000. Hint, it's going to be basically double, right? Because now we usually almost, I would say we never at this point with our firm put someone in annuities, but it's that same thinking of, well, we have this much money, we're going to structure an investment portfolio to pay out X amount over X years. And we just did that for clients. They have, I think it was $150,000 they had.
Yeah, all gold and silver.
All gold and silver. And so they said, well, kind of, if this is managed, what can I expect? And so we put a couple projections. Well, if we aim for this rate of return and you take $600 a month, here's what it'll be in 10 years. If you take $1,000 a month, if we lower your risk a little bit and you're earning 1% less, here's how long it's going to last. And you know your principal and you know your payouts over that period. So we create these sort of annuity calculations in terms of creating payouts from a principal investment you own. And an investor can work with you a lot. They should be able to, creating a lot of different scenarios for you to see if you can get closer to the retirement that you want rather than the retirement that helps you survive. So if you know your budget, you know your Social Security, there may be a conversation with an advisor where our advice is, look, this is what you say you want. We can probably accomplish that in 4 years. If this account can grow from 200 to 260 over 4 or 5 years, a $275,000, a $260,000 investment, that is probably going to get you what you want in treasuries or bonds or, whatever we put your money in, low risk in retirement. So just understand that your advisor is also empowered to help you plan when you have answered those fundamental questions that we're talking about what is my Social Security, what is my budget, what do I want my budget to be, how much income do I want versus need in retirement, and then your investor can help you plan because you've kind of empowered them to by having the information ready that they can help you plan with.
Right. I mean, it really comes down to two things. And I try to have the best bedside manner I can, but I've had to have some tough conversations with people. It really does come down to survive or thrive. And the sooner you can plan for thrive, the less likely you'll survive. If that's a cheesy saying, but it's the truth. If you guys could, like you said, say, okay, I want to retire in 5 years and then make a plan at that point, you can probably, I would say very highly likeliness of success is on your side. Otherwise, if you're like, I want to retire tomorrow, I can't do it anymore. We're at the mercy as a financial advisor of what you've done, right? Like there's nothing we can do immediately for you tomorrow. Like anything that our expertise could add to your life also needs time. Like everything comes down to time. And I know, again, that's not the best bedside manner to tell you it's, hey, you're late to the party. It's not that you're late to the party. It's that now we've got to figure out like how we get you to where you want to be with what you've got. Okay. So you're just a little bit late than other people. It doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means that we got to start now. And maybe there's an adjustment. Maybe you do have to live underneath your means for 5 years or 10 years. But then who knows what happens after that, right? Time, a lot of things happen in time. Warren Buffett has a quote, I have no idea what the S&P 500 is going to be in 20 years. I just know it's going to be higher. I think a majority of investments work that way. Not all of them, but a majority of them do, with the sense that, hey, time is the most important thing. So if time's on your side, which it can almost always be, you'll be able to figure it out.
Awesome. I would say the last kind of piece that I'll just throw in there is, for a lot of people, a fundamental question or part of the planning process of this retirement question is on real estate. So I'm just going to throw out there that next week will be all about kind of the question of, I have investments in real estate. What do I do with them?
Yeah.
That sort of options available to you, that's next week. So for a lot of people, that's a big part of the planning process, and we're going to be talking about that specifically next week and all of the different options available to real estate investors as they approach retirement. Maybe they want to continue, maybe they want to get out of real estate, maybe they want to do half and half, and we'll talk about lots of different options available to people with some sort of real estate holdings in retirement and kind of how to maximize that situation as well. So just look out for that, because that, for a lot of you, that'll be kind of part 2 of answering this question of how do I know if I'm ready to retire and what do I do?
Another thing I want to add to, I just thought of it, is I would say probably out of the 5,000 people who are ready to retire that I've met with in the last 12 years, one of the most common things I see is that they're always like, oh, I have this 401k at this old employer that I haven't done anything. I haven't worked there in 15 years. That kind of stuff, if you got that, this person 15 years ago, if they would have moved that over, they were in all bonds in that account. They had no idea what they were in, and they missed all of 2008 all the way to 2022. Okay, they missed all of that. It was all in bonds, crappy bonds, getting them 1% to 2%. That didn't even cover their fees in the account. Okay, so they really missed out on stuff because they again didn't plan on time. So if you guys have worked at multiple employers, please get your statements, figure it out, consolidate them. We'll help you guys do that. Very easy for us. It's very complicated for you guys. Who do I even call at my last job? They've changed 401k providers, and now you have to figure out who your 401k provider was back then. There's a whole bunch of stuff that is very difficult that you guys will have to catch up on later on. Okay, so again, not that it's too late, but today's the day. Today is the day if you want to retire in the next 3 to 5 years, and earlier the better. But if that's the sweet spot for you, then I think you guys will be in a good spot to try and reach your retirement goals.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good final point, is planning for retirement before retirement allows you to find accounts that might not be really earning anything and have them start working for you now, because time value of money could be on your side if you're forgetting about $30,000 that's in an account that over 20 years could be $150 by the time you want to retire in 20, 25 years. So that's a super important element, is you got to plan for retirement before retirement so that you can make decisions that can actually pay out and earn interest and accumulate equity for you before the day you're ready to retire, and now you're starting the period of getting actual returns with your money.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Paul, we really appreciate the question. And for anyone else out there listening every week, we know there's some of you. You guys have reached out to us. A lot of people, hey, we enjoy listening. Hey, we love this topic. So leave a comment. None of you are listening to us other than Paul. Leave a comment. Send us a DM, whatever you want to do.
No question is stupid. Okay, we want to answer it.
So we really do. Like, this is what we want to do. What do you want to hear? That's what we will help you with. So leave a comment. If it's something that's just a great question, we'll answer it in a future episode. If it's something like this that makes us think that's a really great topic that a lot of people need to hear, we'll make a full episode about it. So reach out to us with anything else that you want to hear. And as always, please feel free to share with anybody you know who could benefit from financial literacy. Remember, we now have 3 sections now. We have 2 Gents 2 Cents in the middle of the week, where we talk about everything personal finance, financial planning, investments, all that good stuff. James breaks down the market every Friday. He talks about investment insights, what is news that happened in the stock market. I'll give you guys a hint. Interest rates were just adjusted. So you know definitely a big thing you're going to hear about on Friday. Those have big impacts for the economy whenever the feds adjust interest rates. So that's big news that people have been waiting for a long time. It affects investments a lot. So tune in. And then on Mondays, I give you the tax plan, where I cover a specific tax area and I help you maximize your knowledge of that tax area so that you can plan around it. So there's lots to learn every week. Please share and please keep listening. Leave comments of what we can cover in future episodes, and hopefully we can keep being a resource to all of our listeners. As always, invest early,
invest often.
See you next time.